Well, so I've been waiting to say this for a very long time, but Jeep have finally made an SUV in India which isn't only for the premium and ultra rich. Yes, this new Compass is relatively more affordable than its other siblings. And why is that? Well, essentially it'll take on the likes of the Hyundai Tucson as well as the VW Tiguan. And is it really worth a second look? Honestly, it is, because it looks like a very premium and posh SUV. In fact, it looks very much like a miniature version of the Grand Cherokee. So let's get started with this review and find out how good it is in terms of the interiors as well as the drive. Well, as soon as you step inside the cabin of the Jeep Compass, you will realize that these seats are very good in terms of comfort. The support for the lower back is really very good. The cushioning is absolutely spot on, and the seat scob is very wide as well as very long, which means that even people who are slightly on the heavier side like me should be comfortable in these seats over those long journeys. So in terms of comfort as well as offering you good relaxation, the Compass really is top class in the front seat department. Well, now in terms of equipment, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because even though you do get a lot of bells and whistles like traction control, multiple airbags as well as ABS, and you also get this electrically operated handbrake, surprisingly you only get a 7-inch touchscreen, whereas rivals offer you bigger sizes, and it's not the easiest screen to operate. Also, cruise control is missing over here, so that's something that maybe Jeep should think about adding onto this car. Well, overall quality is pretty decent. The top of the dashboard is made from softer materials, and the top of the door pad also is made from soft materials. There is a certain amount of premiumness as well as poshness about this cabin, because you get this two-tone effect. It's a very soft off-white color along with this dark grey shade. What also adds to the sense of poshness inside this cabin is this. The glove box opens up nicely and very slowly. It has that dampened out effect. Well, even though the glove box might be okay in terms of its shape and size, overall in terms of utility places, the Jeep Compass is slightly behind its other rivals. You do of course get this huge box where you can keep your cell phone and your wallet, but if you don't really want to keep your cell phone and wallet over here, then there's no other place over here where you can keep them, unlike its rivals which have plenty of places ahead of the gear lever, and there's also no place over here where you can keep it. You do get two cup holders over here in the center console, but the door bins aren't the largest, and they will take care of a half a liter bottle, but anything above this will really struggle to find place in the door bins. So in isolation it's just about decent, but when you compare it to rivals, it is slightly behind in terms of utility places. Well, as I mentioned, the quality of the dashboard as well as the quality of the seat fabric is very good, but some of the switches also don't really have that same tactile feel that you expect at this price point, and they are good in isolation, but when compared to the Hyundai Tucson as well as the VW Tiguan, they are just ever so slightly behind in overall feel as well as fit and finish. Well, just like the front seats, even the back seats offer you very good cushioning, and the support for the lower back is very good. The backrest angle is absolutely spot on. The seat scob is really very wide, which means that even the tallest of tall passengers will have plenty of support for their under thighs, and these seats are probably the best in its segment when it comes to comfort. Now in terms of leg room, knee room is pretty decent, headroom also is pretty good, and I'm sure by now you do know my height, which for reference is 5'10", and I always adjust the front seat for my driving position. There is plenty of place below the front seats where I can stretch my feet. There is a bit of a hump in the floor panel, but it's not really a big issue because it's not a very tall hump. It's a wide hump, but it's not a very tall hump. But even then, there is decent place around the footwells where the passenger over here will manage to accommodate his feet. You also get rear AC vents and also have a USB port to charge your phones and other paraphernalia. So yes, in terms of comfort as well as space, the second row of seats is pretty good. Well, what also adds to the sense of comfort inside the cabin is the fact that the doors open up really nice and wide, and the aperture also is pretty wide, which means that stepping in and stepping out shouldn't be a very difficult affair. And in case you just want to travel with two people over here in the back, you can always take this armrest out and simply have an enjoyable drive. Well, there are a couple of things which you will really enjoy when you step inside the cabin of the Jeep Compass. The first thing, of course, is the fact that these doors have a very reassuring sound when you close them. And Jeep says that they've managed to achieve this because this is the exact same car which will be sent across to the entire world. Yes, Jeep makes this car in India, and they will export this car out of their plant in Pune to all over the world, which means the UK as well as Africa. Well, so talking about the boot on the Jeep Compass, it is a very square shaped boot and it is a pretty deep boot, and you also get a nice spare wheel over here behind this big lid. Now there's no loading lid, but the issue is that the sill is really very high from the ground, so you will have to put in your back when you're loading this car. Well, so here I am driving the Jeep Compass SUV. Now this car, remember, comes with two engine options. There's a 2-liter diesel as well as a 1.4 turbocharged petrol. The diesel engine makes about 350 Nm of torque, while the petrol also makes a very respectable 250 Nm of torque, and that is a very good figure for the torque, because remember, it's a very small capacity engine, but it is of course a turbocharged petrol. In terms of power delivery, the diesel will pump out 170 bhp, and the petrol also is pretty impressive with 160 bhp. Now the petrol engine is the same one which is found on the Fiat Punto Abarth hatchback, so that's a very punchy petrol engine as well. Now in terms of gearboxes, you get the diesel with a 6-speed manual, and you get the petrol with a 6-speed manual as well as a 7-speed automatic. So that automatic is only for the petrol at the moment. There's no automatic on the diesel. Well, the manual gearbox on the diesel version does need a heavy hand to shift. It's not as light to operate as some of its rivals, especially its main Korean rival. But that said, the overall throws are nice and it has a positive action to it. The clutch also is slightly on the heavier side compared to its main Korean rival. So yes, you will have to put in a little more effort on the Compass when you are shifting gears. Well, unlike the Hyundai Tucson as well as the VW Tiguan, the steering wheel on the Compass is slightly on the heavier side, which means that you will have to, of course, put in a lot more effort when you have to park this car into that tight space below your building. And also in the city, it is a little more cumbersome to drive than both those cars, which have much lighter steering wheels. But the plus side of having a heavier steering wheel is the fact that on the highway, the Compass has a lot more confidence on its side than those two other rivals, because the steering wheel definitely has a little more feel at highway speeds, and the ride quality also is very good at faster highway speeds. Well, now remember, the suspension setup on the Compass is slightly on the firmer side, so some of those rumble strips and some of those potholes at slow city speeds will definitely enter the cabin. But on the highway, this car absolutely smothers out all the badly patched up roads, and everything really is completely plummeted by the suspension on this car. You will really not feel anything when you are doing speeds in excess of, say, 80 or 90 kph on Indian highways. Well, in terms of refinement, Jeep engineers say that they really have worked very hard on isolating the cabin from all the noises on the outside, and they've used a lot of special technologies for additional soundproofing of this cabin. So they've really used a lot of things around the windows, the glass area, as well as the floor panel to ensure that this car is cocooned from the world outside. And even though there is absolutely no tire or wind noise, even at higher speeds, there is a little bit of a diesel engine noise which enters the cabin when you're, of course, revving the engine. When you're cruising in this car, the cabin is pretty well isolated. So if you're doing, say, speeds of about 100 kph on the highway and you're using the 6th gear, which really does give the engine a lot of flexibility, the engine is spinning at a relatively low 1700, 1800 RPM, and the cabin is quite a nice place to sit in. It is well isolated from the diesel engine's noise. But of course, if you do decide to rev the engine, and if you are overtaking a slow moving vehicle and decide to shift down a gear, then yes, you can hear that diesel engine sound entering the cabin. Yes, there is a little bit of turbo lag on the diesel engine below 2000 RPM, but that is quite typical of all other diesel engines out there. To get the best from this engine, you need to keep it between 2000 and 3500 RPM, because that's where the best available torque is. But if you really rev it above 3500 RPM, the only thing that you will get is a lot of noise and vibration, and that's something you won't really enjoy. So keeping it below 3500 RPM really is ideal. But yes, between those figures, between 2 and 3500 RPM, this engine has loads of torque to offer and really will shove you to the back of your seat. Well, remember, this car comes with a lot of modes to choose from. You get, of course, the auto mode, which you can choose, and you also get the snow, mud, as well as sand mode. And of course, if you decide to shift the four-wheel drive wheel onto those settings, so what happens when you choose one of those settings is that the engine gearbox as well as the suspension changes its characteristic and helps you get out of that sticky situation. And really, it is the off-roading capabilities of the Jeep Compass which make it very distinctive and make it stand out in a very competitive segment. Well, this Jeep comes with Firestone tires, and I have to say that the tires are very good on this car because they really don't have any noise entering the cabin, and apart from that they really do take you on any surfaces. These tires are of course all-weather tires, and they will absolutely ensure that your Jeep Compass passes through any bad road conditions. Now, even though 90% of people who buy these cars don't buy them for their off-road prowess, they buy them more for their image as well as comfort that these cars offer, it is good to know that in case you ever do get stuck in a very bad situation, the Jeep Compass has the ability to pull you out of those sticky and muddy situations. So that's always something which is at the back of your mind, and something which does give you a sense of great confidence. Well, so how is the Jeep Compass as a keen driver's car? Well, it is a decent car to drive, I have to admit, but if you really want keen driving thrills, then there are some other options out there at the same price point which offer you more bang for your buck. Well, so what stands in the way of sales success for the Jeep Compass is the fact that it has some very well-established rivals, and rivals which have a very strong fan following. But that said, if you're in the market for a distinctive looking SUV which has a very comfortable cabin, a punchy diesel engine, and probably the best 4x4 capabilities at this price point, then this is a car that you should definitely go ahead and check out at a Jeep dealership near you. It's bye for now, and hope to see you soon.